I call to order the April 27th, 2022 Area Board of Zoning Appeals meeting of Tippecanoe County. First item on the business is the roll call.
Steve Clevenger.
Present.
Gary Schroeder. Present. Michelle Dennis. Present. Ed Butts. Present. Tom Andrew. Present. Robert Novak.
Present.
Jen Decker. Jen Decker. Quorum present.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the last meeting minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the March 23rd, 2022 BZA public hearing as submitted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any corrections or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved as submitted. New business.
All four cases are ready to be heard.
Thank you. With that in mind, I'd like to go ahead and take the public hearing motion.
First?
Yeah.
Okay. I move that there be incorporated in the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Board of Zoning Appeals, the application and all documents filed therewith, the staff report, and recommendation on the applications to be heard this evening and responses from the checkpoint agencies.
A second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. I'd like to discuss our procedures for the meeting. Each case will be heard following a motion and a second from the board. We'll ask the staff to report on its findings. Following the staff report, we will ask the petitioner to present his or her case, after which anyone wishing to support the petitioner's request for a variance or special exception will be asked to come forward. After hearing from the petitioner and those speaking on his or her behalf, we will ask those speaking against the petition to present their arguments. The petitioner will then be allowed to rebut arguments raised by those in opposition to his or her petition. Following the rebuttal, the board may wish to ask questions of the petitioner supporters and opponents of the petition or of the staff. The staff will have the opportunity at this time to make any necessary clarifying comments. We will then vote by use of a prescribed ballot. 4 votes are necessary to make any decision. In the absence of 4 votes, either for or against a petition, is automatically continued to the next meeting. Please observe the following guidelines for the sake of time and fairness to all. State your name and address for the record before you speak. Limit your remarks to 5 minutes or less. Do not repeat arguments that have been brought up by others. Remember that all visual aids used to support your arguments will remain the property of the board. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. Please step out of the room before using your cell phone. We also ask that if you speak in favor or opposition, that you sign on the clipboard over at the staff desk. With that in mind, I'll take the first case.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2073, John Scheidler, Landworks Engineering. Petitioners requesting the following variance for a proposed Arby's restaurant with a drive-through in an HB zone. Number 1, to allow a 38-foot side setback instead of the minimum required 60-foot side setback along a primary arterial road UZO 2-18-17, and number 2, to allow a 20-foot buffer yard along the adjacent property zoned R2 to the east instead of the minimum required 30 feet, UZO 4-9-3A.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and we'll ask for the staff report, please.
All right. So tonight we're hearing the first case here, BZA 2073. Petitioner is requesting the following 2 variances: to allow a 38-foot side setback instead of the minimum required 60-foot side setback, and then to allow a 20-foot buffer yard along the adjacent property zone R2 to the east instead of the minimum required 30 feet. The property is currently vacant apart from a small pet cemetery on the north end of the site. If approved, the property will house an Arby's restaurant with indoor seating for 40 and a 2-lane drive-through. The site in question you can see here is zoned HB, which is highway business, and has been since 2008 when it was rezoned from R2 with the intention of housing a gas station and a convenience store that both were never built. The zoning pattern in this area, my mouse is a little draggy here. Zoning pattern in this area is pretty much commercial. It's serving that I-65 exit. Both sides of State Road 43 are either zoned HB or there's this one GB here. The lot to the east of the site is zoned R2, as is some of these other lots here along County Road 600. And the 14-acre property to the north is zoned R1. Having some troubles here with this mouse. There we go. The site is currently vacant, except for, again, that pet cemetery along the north, which was approved through a special exception in 1993. I'm going to revisit this a little bit later. The neighboring parcel to the east is a single-family home. You can see it a bit better here on the zoomed-in photo. It was built in 1970, and the R1 acreage to the north is unimproved, but it appears to be in row crops currently. State Road 43 is classified as a primary, rural primary with that 60-foot setback, and County Road 600 is a rural secondary with the 40-foot setback. On the site plan, if my mouse will let me move, they're showing that 60-foot is this dotted line here, and then the 40 also is dotted here. So you can see those required setbacks. The site plan shows new access points here. They're just slightly moved from what's existing. So they're just moving the driveway slightly to the north here and then just barely over here. So almost the same. The petitioner also has all the required parking. They're required to have 27 and 28 spots are shown. So they're one extra from what's required. Sewer and water do not serve the site, though it is in the service area for the town of Battleground, so the petitioner is working with the town to get service to the property. So as for some staff comments here, there was some discussion in the staff report about different possibilities for the building footprint, maybe shifting the building or reconfiguring in some way to try to meet those setbacks. But to fit the restaurant plus the drive-through plus all the required parking, it was difficult. So I think they really tried their best here. I think they're doing their best to make use of a lot that was originally designed for a small gas station. You can see some photos here, give you a little bit better feel for the site. We're looking north here. I tried, again, you guys are getting familiar maybe with my little arrows here showing yours, where you're looking here. So this will be the fence, that's the neighbor's fence. That will be where the buffer yard would be 20 feet instead of the 30 if the variance is approved. Here's another view overall looking north. So again, a smaller site compared to the other fast food sites in the area. So there's two things I wanted to address because the addendum came out since the last meeting. First being that on their site plan, they showed a buffer yard of 30 feet to the front, to the north, not the front, where it abuts that R1 zone. But per UZO 495A, the petitioner is actually only responsible for providing half of the required 30-foot buffer yard since the adjacent property is unimproved. So staff would just like an updated site plan showing that 15 feet, and that's pretty much the gist of it. So that's the first condition that we have. And then the second, circling back to the pet cemetery, staff met with petitioners and agreed upon a license, which was included in your packets. The license essentially gives those interested parties of the pet cemetery the right to access the property. I'm happy to try to answer questions about the license, and hopefully petitioner's representative also can do the same. We did look over that, and Eric took a look at it, and staff supports that license as is. We think it addresses the issues that what would the pet owners be able to do, and it clarified a lot and protected the cemetery, and we thought it did a good job. So recording the ballot items, the Area Plan Commission at its March 16, 2022 meeting determined that the variants requested are not use variances. Granting both variances will not be injurious to the public health, safety, and general welfare of the community. Regarding both variances, use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance request, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. The terms of the zoning ordinance are being applied to a situation that's not common to other properties in the area. Again, the lot size and dimensions only allow for a narrow building footprint and minimal parking, whereas typical fast food restaurants have much bigger footprints. And also something to be considered is that this was replatted before the buffer yard requirements changed in 2018, so they weren't anticipating there needing to be the 30-foot buffer yard. So that explains also why the lot has some, not restrictions, some limitations that they are why they're asking for their variance. Strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in an unusual or unnecessary hardship. Again, quite small, it's not self-imposed, and we do think that they're just providing minimum relief here. So staff is recommending approval for both variances with two conditions being the revised site plan showing the 15-yard buffer yard to the north, and then the second condition being prior to the building permit issuance, petitioner shall record an access license agreed upon by petitioner and APC staff. So I'm here for any questions. I also just want to say we received one petition with 13 signatures in opposition, so I can read that at a later time.
Thank you, and we'll hear from the petitioner, please. Ms. Owen?
Well, good evening. My name is Marianne Owen. I'm from the law firm of Stewart and Brannigan. I'm here on behalf of John Seidler of Landworks Engineering. And as has just been noted, our client is requesting two variances on a lot that was originally intended in recent years as a convenience store area in an HB zone. And it is surrounded primarily by other business zones. The APC staff's report describes well our request and provides a positive recommendation for both of our requested variances. The setback from State Road 43 is a reasonable one, and the landscaping that was noted next to the residential area will be more dense due to the reduced area of the setback. Now, a special factor in this request is the pet cemetery. And this lies on the north side of the lot. And with your legal counsel, as was just noted, we have developed a license that works for a 5-year period that protects this area and shall maintain it with the option of extending that period of time for an additional 5 years. And this will be noted by a plaque that will be in that area to allow persons who have pets in the area to view the request and contact the parties shown on the particular plaque. We're here to answer any questions you might have in regard to this, and respectfully request your approval of our two variances.
Hey, thank you. We may have some questions later for you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition, please come forward.
My name is Fred Miley. I live at 1322 South 28th Street in Lafayette. My wife has 6 animals bedded in that pet cemetery, and I'm the one who takes care of it. I have been for about the last 20, 25 years. I've been taking care of the cemetery on my own. And my only question is, in the past, there was an entrance that we were able to park when I worked on mowed the cemetery, and that I just wonder where the parking will be if somebody has to go out there, guests have to go out there where they park, for one thing, because it's 43 on one side and 600 on the other with Arby's, so there's not going to be any parking unless you park in Arby's lot, and I don't think Arby's going to want that. So that's my main question. And another question is on the variance for good for 5 years. Does that mean after 5 years we have to reapply for another 5 years?
We'll see if we can get some questions for you, some answers for your questions.
Okay, that's all I have. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Do you have a petition that you'd like to read against?
All right, this is a petition with, again, 13 signatures, and it's labeled Objection to Proposed Variance. It reads, "There are several reasons we object to the proposed variance at the property located at 6001 State Road 43 North, West Lafayette, Indiana, 47906. Any drive-through business would bring about increased traffic and congestion as commuters head to work and Harrison High School students and staff head to school at what is already a busy time of morning. There's concern about the fate of the pet cemetery located just north of the land in question where 39 cherished pets are buried. It is the community's duty to preserve and protect their memory of each and every one of these pets and their owners. Some of the pet owners have lavished years of time, care, and money on maintaining this special burial ground. Higher levels of harmful emissions of exhaust fumes would be dangerous to people in neighboring homes. Idling vehicles waiting in queue lines contributes greenhouse emissions. Volatile organic compounds and nitrogen oxides are toxic to humans. It seems there are already plenty of these fumes coming from gas stations and fast food establishments that are currently operating in the area. Statistics show that convenience stores in Lafayette have had more robberies and drug deals over the past 5 years than other types of establishments. This undoubtedly will pose a threat to the health and safety of the area and negatively affect the neighbors' property values. We, the undersigned, are concerned citizens who ask that our county leaders consider denying the request for a variance in this matter." Would you like me to read all names that were signed? Sure. Marcia Quebler, Kurt Quebler, Joan Bauer, John Bauer, Fernando Ramirez, Denise Hayes, Dennis Hardebeck, Robert Meister, Marilyn Drennan, I believe it says, sorry, Pedro Roland Esquisito, Christian Dell, Connie Stymick, and Stephen Lips, and all have corresponding addresses.
My name is Pedro Rolón Espinosa, 2026 East, 300 North, next to the business. My concern is about my friend George, and I had two little kids that like playing in my yard. Now, there's going to be a lot of people around to right there, so we cannot trust the people to pass to the parking lot, whatever, and stand right there. To my other things is behind my yard. I know how to fence behind my yard, so you can see all the ways behind too many parking lot. You never know what kind of people is parking over there, thinking about it something. Go to different property. People think a lot of things, or bad things, and my concern is my kids they don't have a little privacy for play outside and behind my yard, on the front of my yard. The other thing is by the traffic, by the pass. It's only one way in the 600 North, so they can have this the one way go to a street to west, or take a right to 43 North. It's only one way. There's no too many room to the traffic. It's gonna be my concern to the buses in the morning. So that's what my question is. I don't know. They're gonna make a business, and I'm concerned by my kids playing in the front yard, in the backyard. And another thing is by the smell, by go to the wind, go east, all the time it's gonna be that way. So there's gonna be go my property. Gonna be a lot of lights. I don't know how late gonna be open or how it be in the morning. There's going to be the lights to my house too, so really close to my house. That's my concern. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Questions from the board? Gary?
I think I failed to read the entire narrative here to include the conditions. I don't think I read that. So I'm going to amend my motion to include for BZA 2073, the site is located at 6001 State Road 43 North, Lot 1 and Aurora Minor Subdivision in the town of Battleground, Tippecanoe 22 Southwest 24-4 with conditions was the thing I left out.
And it's probably also with commitment, isn't it? Isn't that last?
It's a condition.
It is a condition?
Condition.
Okay.
Clarify, your house is, is the one right there to the east of the lot we're talking about? Is that right?
I believe his
Where-
house is the one that is shown right next
Is
to.
it right there?
Just to the right in the drawing. I would, just a point of order here, can we have a second for Gary's motion to amend?
Second.
And can we go ahead and vote on that amendment?
Yeah, where the,
Yeah, that's that gentleman's house there.
Yeah. All in favor of adding the conditions to the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That carries.
And for a further clarification, I believe there are 3 conditions. We have 1 condition about a public access easement, and then we have 2 more. So I want to make sure that it's clear the record's clear whether it's 3 or 2. It could be either.
It's 2.
Just
So
the 2.
Just
a s-
the
an
two.
updated
Second
site
2
plan.
amend the first one. So it's the second 2 in the amended staff, or addendum to the staff report.
Just a clarification.
The motion's all good, I just wanted to make sure I knew.
Yeah,
Because the license takes place
Yep.
of the easement.
Fair enough.
exactly. Thanks, Steve.
I guess I forgot to ask Ms. Owen if she would like to rebut.
If I may.
Yeah.
Well, the first question of, as far as parking, there is parking available. Yes, it is on the site, on the RB site. And it is contemplated in the northernmost parking spots would be used by persons who are visiting this pet cemetery. The concerns as far as the neighbor's concerns, this is an HB zoned lot. There are many different types of uses that are permitted in such a zone, and this is just one of the many. They draw on a large number of persons and demands of time and space, but this is a reduced size development, and it is on a reduced size lot. We respectfully request the approval of the pending variances with their 2 conditions. If there are further questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
I do have a couple about the pet cemetery, and staff may have to answer part of this. So essentially, the license is for 5 years, and if anyone, an interested party, can ask for an additional 5-year extension, correct? So
That
that's a
would
total
be
of 10 years.
a person who has a pet
Pet,
in,
that's an interested, I mean,
in the
that's what I'm
actual
considering
cemetery,
interested
yes.
person, correct?
that is correct.
What happens after that 10-year period?
Then the cemetery becomes a piece of the ground, a usable piece of the ground by the Arby's owners.
And so in essence, what happens to the headstones and the remains that are there? I mean, are they just removed, or the headstones removed, or are they just left there,
They
or?
can be removed. The persons who have interred their pets there may choose to remove them, and the persons who own the property may choose to remove them as well.
And I remember the special exception, but I don't remember the details of the special exception for the pet cemetery. Were there any, and I don't know again what the contracts were that were signed with people buying or leasing those plots of land, but I'm interested to know what the people that have pets buried on that are expecting, of that site, or were told of that site. I mean, were they told that their animals and headstones would remain there on that site? Were they given so many years? It's like, if you think of a human cemetery, I mean, it's considered sacred ground. To these pet owners, is there a difference? I don't know, Eric, if you can fill in as well. I don't know what the what was told to these pet owners when they buried their pets, and are they going to be notified that this license agreement is in place so that they can move their pet if after that 5 or 10 years if needed?
I'll tell you what I know, and then you can tell me if state code has a mention of this somewhere. The original special exception, I don't believe contemplated the platting of plots. And so I don't believe there were legal descriptions created and plots recorded like a human cemetery.
Right.
So there's ostensibly nothing to vacate, I believe. My recollection is that it had an area for expansion in the original special exception that was never utilized. And then I guess the stewards of that property, of that use, essentially kind of just ceased using it, And then I think it was, the gentleman who cares for it now may have even more history he could share, but I believe it's just maintained by people that have connections with the property and maintaining it and visiting pets' remains that are there. But that's what I recall, is that, there were no platted plots, and that there was an expansion area that was never triggered. And that's about as much as I've got, so.
Yeah, when people paid to have their pets buried there, I'm assuming that they paid to have their pets buried there, what were they told, or were they given something that?
I don't know the answer to that, yeah.
And, is there any legal issues? Maybe Eric knows.
Right. It becomes there's several issues,
Okay.
and it's an unusual
Yeah.
situation.
That's why I'm asking.
The sort of the stark answer is there is no legal requirement for the developer to do anything. Now, they're before you asking for
Right.
you to give them variances, which obviously they want to do what you believe is right in this regard. And I think staff was appropriate and appropriately designated it as a moral obligation. I don't know how you do it or state it any other way other than a feeling of moral obligation. So that's number one. Number two, cemeteries for humans, those are heavily regulated. You can't move them for any reason, and the law is going to make a completely different situation. What we have here is, in Indiana and most states, is if you're going to protect real estate that will keep it from having something happen to it, you have to record something in the chain of title that says, here it is, you can't do this, so that everybody gets notice. In Indiana, it's a notice statute, and what it says is, if you buy a piece of property and there's something in the chain of title that says, look out, we got a pet cemetery here, you can't interfere with this, then these developers would be stuck with it. There is no such filing. And so, in the law, there is no restriction on their ability to use it. Back to the fact they're before you asking for some relief, which means the moral obligation in this particular case has some teeth because the board here is being asked to do certain things for them that you have discretion to do. When it first came up, it struck me that I wasn't sure that a developer would say anything but, no, we don't have to do that, because they would be right if they said, no, we don't have to do that. I thought it was an accommodation by the developer. I was surprised, and I'm kind of a pessimist when it comes to that. So I think the reason that this was put in as a license is because it is the least rigorous interest in real estate that you can give or get. It's not an easement. If it was an easement, it would create, at least in my view, some very novel title problems because it's a pet cemetery and it's a use that would be not well understood. The other thing that, while we have paperwork's wonderful, signing paperwork's great, but in my opinion, often if what is being done is something that is favoring someone, that's a good thing. And to me, it favors the developer because they get people there on their site who are going to be parking over there, going to see their pets, and getting a cup of coffee or doing whatever else they're doing. It brings people. And so if it was in the middle of the site, I'd be worried about it because it might get paved over. I don't think anything's going to go on there, which, again, is the other thing that I looked at, and at least in my view, it looked like a doable situation to have a license. Is it long enough? I don't know. I don't have an opinion on that. But it is 5 plus 5 if someone would ask. So that's where I am on it. I have no idea what contractual obligations the owner made, but again, unless those contractual obligations were brought into the chain of title, they are not binding on a subsequent purchaser.
And to the best of our knowledge, there is not any sort of commitment on that, in that way.
Okay.
But as far as maintenance going forth, that was another question that was had, and this is something that Arby's is taking on as a part of its ownership.
That answers my question. I just would hate to see somebody come back in 10 years and essentially have it out with the Arby's manager on site because something happened to their, to where their pet is because they were never notified. It's somebody that was young that came back and visited, that left the area and came back and, in 11 years or whatever, and were disappointed to find out that, hey, their pet is no longer there.
Well, that's where we tempted with the starting with the 5 years
And
as
I-
a reasonable period
and
of time, but extending it to 10 for persons who have that concern.
And I appreciate the effort, with, the license and that. And, if we weren't to approve it, you could do anything with it right now anyway. So it's our advantage to allow, the license to go into effect. So I'm not opposed to the license. I'm just looking at, well, these are the scenarios that can happen with that. And if we ever approve a pet cemetery by special exception in the future, it might be something that we need to take a closer look at, what type of conditions we put on it. And I'll recognize you if you have, since you had questions and a pet at the cemetery, or we're taking care of it.
When the gentleman that sold us the plots, we bought 6 at one time. They were $700 apiece, no contract that I know of, and that was back in 1995. Now, I wasn't the first, we weren't the first plots there. There was already a cemetery started, that's how we found out about it. The 5 years and then 5 more years, it's going to almost be out of my realm anyway, because I'll have to be 90 years old. I probably won't worry about a pet cemetery at 90 years old. But my wife wouldn't feel the same way I do. And as far as parking is concerned, that entrance that's on 43 now looks like to me it's been moved back from where it is right now. If you give me bring the other one up.
You can see where
That's
on
the
that
new-
plot, the
that's
white is the existing.
That's the new one. But there was one that, when you showed a picture of all the 4 sections of the field, it showed the pet cemetery in 2 different angles, right there, out back.
Whoop.
Right, that's that.
Yeah,
Right there. Now, that's where it's at now, entrance to, that's where I park right there to cut the pet cemetery. That looks like to me that entrance is going to be moved on back,
correct.
but it still doesn't tell me where I'm going to be allowed to park to go work on it. to maintain
According to the petitioner, you'll be able to park in that upper area right there,
in Arby's
in
area?
the Arby's parking lot.
That's fine with me, as long as I don't have to park out on 43. Yeah. In fact, there's a gentleman across 43 and down a couple of houses whose name was, that she read, does the major mowing, and I just do the trimming now because I got to the place I didn't want to do it anymore as far as it was too much. And he has a big mower, he comes in, does the mowing, and I do the trimming around the gravestones and stuff like that. But I've been doing it probably, since 1995. There's been 3 owners and I don't know, only owner I know for sure was the middle one, and none of them have done anything. I've done it all, so. But no
Okay.
contract that I know of it whatsoever, so. I guess back in 1995, they didn't think we needed a contract for pet cemeteries.
Thank you for the information.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I had a question for Maureen. I wanted to make sure I understood you correctly with one of your comments. That when this was originally rezoned to HB, the setbacks at the time would have been acceptable for what they're proposing now, but that there was a change in setbacks in 2018 that restricted them further?
Yes, so before 2018, the setback requirement was 20 feet, which they would be meeting here, but now they need 30. So that's why they're asking for the variance. So basically, they're meeting pre-2018 standards here with the second variance, I should say.
Okay.
So that's what I meant by that.
All right, thank you.
And it is, I mean, the site is zoned business, so a business is going to go in on this site. And originally, it was a gas station. Now, I mean, it's an Arby's restaurant, so it's, I mean, unfortunately, it's next to your house. But, I mean, whether we grant this or not, it may be, if we don't grant it, it may be that an Arby's won't go there, but another business could, or it could be that they just move it closer to your house. So it's hard to, it's a tough one, and it may be, something to consider a fence. I know there is a buffer yard that will be going in on that side. But it does take a while for those trees and shrubs to grow.
I just have one other question, quick question.
Can you come up to the mic, please?
How will I be notified when the 5 years is up, so I can try for the second 5 years? Will I be notified by someone, or I got to put that on my calendar now, or what?
You can, by its terms, you could notify them as soon as it's built. It says here that you, let's see, you can extend for an additional 5 years by providing written notice to the company before the end of the initial 5-year period.
The company, like, are you saying Arby's company?
Yeah, it's going to have a sign, so when you're there and you see the sign, it'll explain who you needed to contact, and reading the actual document, it says anytime before the end of the first 5 years, so
Yeah.
anytime.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Last chance for comments, questions? We have ballots.
All right, I have 6 ballots in hand on the setback variance, and the vote is 6 in favor of granting and 0 against. I also have 6 ballots for the buffer yard variance, and that is also 6 in favor to grant and 0 against.
Both variances have been granted, and we'll hear the next case, please.
Thank you very much.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2074, Andrew Heber Real Estate LLC. Petitioners requesting a special exception to use the existing single-family home as a transient guest house as defined in the ordinance, in an R1B zone for a maximum of 6 guests. The proposed hours of operation are 24 hours a day, 7 days per week. The property is located just east of US 231, specifically at 525 Schroeder Court, Lafayette, Wheel 6 Northwest, 22-4, UZO 3-2, with condition.
A second.
Have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please. Maureen?
All right, so this is the second case for this evening, BZA 2074. Petitioner and owner is requesting a special exception to use an existing single-family home as a transient guest house in an R1B zone for a max of 6 guests. As already said, the proposed hours of operation are 24 hours a day, 7 days per week. Property is located just east of 231. Here you can see outlined in red, specifically at 525 Schroeder Court in Lafayette. Property is zoned R1B, as is all surrounding property. Northeast of the site is some R2, R3, PDRS, so all residential zones. And then across US 231 to the west there is the R1 zoning. There's a spot of I3 zoning there and pretty far south from the site, though. There has been no recent rezone or ABZA cases in this neighborhood. The home was built in 1996 as a single-family residence, according to the building commissioner's records. The entire neighborhood is comprised of single-family homes, and the R1 zoned area across 231 to the west there is unimproved currently. Schroeder Court is a local road. The neighborhood's access is actually off Old Romney Road, which is off the map, unfortunately, but I just wanted to point out it does not have any access from 231. The lot does have a 2-car attached garage and a driveway with capacity to park 4 vehicles, which 4 parking spaces is adequate, we would say, for the max 6 guests. The house rules provided by petitioner also prohibit street parking, so we think parking is sufficient here. City utilities serve the site. Here's some photos. So it's at the end of a cul-de-sac, pretty standard single-family home here. So again, per staff comments, petitioner seeking the special exception to use this existing single-family home here in the photo as a transient guest house. So a transient guest house meaning there would be no on-site owner. However, Linda Seigler, a local property manager, will work with the property owner to oversee the property and be available for guests and neighbors. If approved, this home can be rented by a maximum of 30 days. No less, let me rephrase that, by a maximum of 6 guests at a short-term rental of less than 30 days or as a standard long-term, so it's either or. That was confusing, I'm sorry. I can rephrase that again later if you have any questions. The site plan shows adequate lighting here. They have 2 on the driveway, a porch light, and then also a rear light, so pretty good lighting for a single-family home. I think the main concerns here were traffic and noise. However, petitioner limiting the request to 6 people and the addition of these house rules, I know it's kind of hard to read them here, but they should be included in your packet too. It further ensured staff that the disruption to traffic and noise would be handled. They don't allow parties, they're not allowing people from out of town to rent the house and have, I guess, big events or anything. They're not allowing pets, so no barking dogs or anything like that. No parking on the street, etc. There's a pretty good neighbor policy here too that Linda Seigler, the site manager, said she would handle any disruptions, or she's going to make sure her information is available if there's any issues at the site. The ordinance prohibits a transient guest house use from changing its basic appearance as a dwelling, and there should be no additional signage or anything. It will look just like it is now, a single-family home. If this request is granted, the petitioner is required to apply for a permit from the AO, in this case the Lafayette City Engineer, to operate the transient guest house. So at the meeting on April 6, 2022, the Exec Committee of the Area Plan Commission voted that granting this request would not substantially adversely affect the comprehensive plan. Section 3.1 of the UZO does authorize the special exception for a transient guest house as defined in the R1B zoning district. So it's staff's opinion that the requirements and development standards for the request uses prescribed by the UZO will be met, and granting the special exception will not subvert the general purposes served by the ordinance. Granting the special exception will not materially or permanently injure other property or uses in the same district. When it comes to traffic, this traffic generated would be really no different than any other single-family home in the area, and with that max of 6 guests, that kind of ensures that. Also, the garage and the driveway is adequate parking for this use. Outdoor lighting, the site plan showed adequate lighting, similar to the other single-family homes on the street, the same street. Noise production, again, these house rules are prohibiting parties and such, so the large noise contributors are here in these house rules taken care of. And again, Linda will be available for any complaints. And then hours of operation, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week is pretty average for your single-family home, so it's the same as the homes in the area. So staff is recommending approval with one condition, which is to obtain the permit from this Lafayette City Engineer's office for their transient guest house. Available for any questions.
Thank you. Petitioner or his or her representative. And while you're coming forward, we'd like to welcome Dr. Steinhardt in this class.
I'm sorry?
I'm just welcoming the new class that walked in.
Hi, I am Linda Sigler. I'm here representing Andrew Heber. I've been his property manager for 16 years. We have, I have managed an Airbnb here in Lafayette for him, 1 in Monticello and 2 in Indianapolis. We are very, very strict on our house rules. All of the neighbors on the list that you have that were sent the certified letters, they have my phone number, and I've made it clear I am available for phone calls. We do have exterior cameras on the homes, 3 of them. 1 at the driveway, 1 at the front door, 1 at the back door. They're not going to get a party past me. So, dogs, there are certain dogs that we have to accept by law, but we don't accept your overall pet. We realize that that is a disturbance to the neighbors, and no. We have also found that Airbnbs generate less traffic, they generate less noise, because in Lafayette in particular, what you're going to see is Purdue parents coming in to visit their child at Purdue. Or in May, there's going to be an influx of them coming in to pack up their Purdue student and take them home for the summer. We don't have any big issues at all. The worst issue we've ever had was in Indianapolis. Somebody blocked part of somebody's driveway on the street. So, yeah, but I monitor, I review video daily. In fact, sometimes if I'm concerned about the guest that's coming in, I'll monitor several times a day just to make sure that none of our rules are being broken. I don't hesitate to go knocking at the door. If I can't get any results, I contact Airbnb. If that gets no results, I contact the police, which I only do as a last resort. You know, I don't feel like it's their job to monitor our Airbnb. But most things I can handle on my own. Any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Make sure I turn my mic on.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? Anyone in opposition? Any questions, comments? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. For the staff, regarding parking, you stated that there's room for 4 vehicles. Was that counting 2 in the garage and 2 outside?
Yeah, that's correct. So 2 inside the attached garage and then 2 in the driveway.
Because I saw it was only a 35-foot driveway, and I didn't want it to be blocking the sidewalk.
Yeah, originally we were thinking, oh, maybe they can have 6, and we're like, no, it has to be 2 in the garage, well out of the way, and then they can fit. You saw that large truck still cleared, there's still space on the sidewalk there, so the 4 parking includes inside the garage, yes.
Thank you.
I do have a question for staff. Does the maximum of 6 guests, is that limited by the petition itself, or do we need a condition?
The petitioner included that in their request, so they said max 6 guests.
Okay.
If I may,
Please come up to the mic, please.
we put that in there because we have found that anything over 6, you increase the risk of an in-house party, and we want to avoid that at all costs. You know, not only is it a disturbance to the neighbor, I'm sorry, I have Bell's palsy, so it makes
No
it hard to
problem.
understand
You're
me.
fine.
Not only is it a disturbance to the neighbor, but it creates property damage that we then have to take care of. So that's why we limit it to 6. You know, your average family, husband, wife, 4 children. That's why. Thank you.
Thank you. And are the house rules that were presented, were they part of the petition, or can they be changed?
They were part of the petition as well.
They're also part of the
Yeah.
petition?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Michelle.
So just want to make sure I understand this correctly then. So if we granted this special exception, and if at some point Andrew decided he didn't want to have the property anymore, do all of these conditions then transfer to whoever buys it, and they can also have a transient guest house here, and it could be managed by some other company? How does that work?
Yes, goes with
Yeah.
the land.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, because I have no concern about how they're going to be managing it. It seems like they have a tight ship, but
The
somebody
use
else
just
could come
has
in.
to be continuing.
So it would
it
have
can't-
the
it
same
can't
house
be-
rules, because that's a part of this
It
request?
can't be an expired use after, within that
All-
year time span.
Everything that applies to this would apply to anyone in the future.
So the 6 guest limit
So the
and all
6
of
guest
that?
limit,
Okay.
since that's in the petition. So they would have to come back for another special exception
If they wanted 8
if they
people
wanted
or
to
something.
modify that.
Right.
Thank you.
Last chance for questions? If not, we've got a ballot.
I have 6 ballots, and all 6 are in favor to grant the special exception.
Special exception has been granted, and I'll hear our next case, please. Gary?
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2075, Tippecanoe County Commissioners. Petitioners requesting a special exception to expand a previously approved special exception, BZA 1473, for a correctional facility, SIC 9223, and a redesign of the building approved under the special exception heard in October 2021, BZA 2066, operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on property located at 2800 North 9th Street Road, Fairfield, Longways Reserve, West Half, 23-4.
Have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from you, Brian.
Okay. All right, well, as you know, this is a familiar site, and we last heard this case in October of last year for an expansion of correctional facility. Go ahead, and as you can see from zoning, we've got a lot of floodplain. This area is the one part that's out of it. A lot of non-residential zoning, the exception of the facility across the street, which was down zoned for a historic renovation refit to a residential use. Here's our current site. And then here's the site showing, I believe, the solar array and then the proposed expansion, which is kind of shown here. I believe that's, yeah. We also have a floor plan that's in your packet if you want to see some of the details, rendering of the proposal. So the really very nothing materially has changed here with this petition. We have 94 parking spaces, which exceeds the required amount. So there's plenty of parking. Obviously, city utilities are available. This is basically a reduction in the profile of the building. It's going from originally planned 2 to a single-story facility. This would seem to meet the commissioner's needs, and Commissioner Murtaugh is here, of course, to answer any questions on the proposal. But staff's opinion is changed, or is unchanged from October. This proposed use continues to meet all of the tests for special exception. So we are recommending approval. They have to answer any questions.
Thank you. And petitioner, his or her representative, Commissioner Murtaugh.
Good evening. Ryan did a great job explaining we're here tonight because as this project went to bid, as is typical in this particular market, it came in over bid and we had to scale the project back. We went from a 2-story projected project to a 1-story with a reduction, obviously, in square feet. And so this is the new site plan that we're going with, and we have confirmed that bids are good and we're ready to go. So we will not be back, I promise you. But appreciate your positive vote on this. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? In opposition? Any questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, we've got one ballot.
I have 6 ballots, and all 6 vote to grant the special exception.
Special exception has been granted, and we'll hear the last case, please.
I move to hear and vote on BZA 2076, Amy Gaeta. Petitioner is requesting a special exception to allow an indoor soccer field, SIC 7999, operating 24 hours per day, 7 days a week on property located at 160 North 36th Street, Lafayette, Fairfield 22, SC 23-4.
I second.
Have a motion and a second, and we'll hear from staff, please. Ryan?
Okay. Well, we are on 36th Street here on Lafayette's near east side. We have the Target retailer right here, restaurants, all sorts of general business development, and then a lot of light and kind of mid-level industrial uses scattered through the I-3 area. So what's missing obviously is residential. We do have some multifamily further to the east, but not immediately adjacent to this site. 36th Street is definitely a non-residential thoroughfare. Go ahead and zoom in. Here's the existing situation. And here's the proposal. So the indoor sports facility is obviously the main event. The site plan has 28 parking spaces, including 2 accessible. This is acceptable to city engineering. It does have 2 existing driveways from North 36 that it will be utilizing. Current gravel area on the site will have to be paved as part of this petition to bring it up to code, so to speak. Of course, city utilities are available. There is no buffering necessary given all adjacent zones. The site plan, the existing building is almost 3,000 square foot. Well, I'm sorry, the addition is going to bring it to that level. Hours of operation are 24/7. I can let the petitioner sort of explain how they run their operation. But this is not uncommon to some other indoor sports facilities that we've heard over the years where they have, matches that go into the night and wee morning hours. And so there's precedent for this. So the tests are all met according to the report. And again, because of all the adjacencies, this is just this is a non-residential area. The fact that all the activities taking place inside, there's really going to be no major noise generated here. And the building's limitations itself, will, sort of ensure that the amount of folks that can come to this site, have available parking spaces. There's really no place for overflow anywhere. So the site sort of limits itself in terms of how busy it'll be. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we are recommending approval.
Thank you, Ryan.
Let me see if there's any other images here. Here's just an image of the current conditions. So we'll go ahead and go back to the site plan.
Petitioner, his or her representative.
Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Gaida, and I am asking for a special exception to do an indoor soccer field here. It have always been a dream of ours, me and my husband's, to be able to do a soccer thing here in town. So I think that soccer has grown a lot over the years here. We see that this project here could be very good for the community. We're trying to see if we can do, aside from recreational soccer games, also do training throughout the week. We can do probably trainings to high school or maybe even children to be able to give more options for kids. I think that being able to do this as well, we're going to try to, clean up the place, obviously, and make it look nice and a safe place for families to bring their kids to come and play. So if you guys have any questions, let me know, and hopefully I can answer them for you.
We'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the petition? In opposition? Any questions? Go ahead.
If the special exception is granted, does it limit it to athletic activities? Could birthday parties, concerts, could anything else take place inside of it? Or would the special exception only limit it to athletic activity?
Yeah, sort of the petition, the site plan, everything is the approval. So that they couldn't exceed what they're doing now without another special exception. So the SIC code that this would fall under does allow other things, but they're limiting themselves to this specific use. And we've encountered this before. If you're familiar with the corn maze exploration acres, as they've evolved, they've come in for subsequent special exceptions to add stuff to their original approval. So this would be no different.
I do have a question. Are there any locker rooms or concessions or any, I mean, it shows the soccer field in the building, but it doesn't show much else.
Well, we didn't do much detail of that yet, but it's going to be much smaller than an outdoor field. So obviously, it's not going to be 11 versus 11 or anything like that. It's going to be a very small 5 versus 5 team tier. So it's not going to be very big because the building is not big itself. So
Yeah, I'm assuming there are at least restrooms in there.
there's going to be
it's-
restrooms and just a sitting area.
Yeah, okay.
Locker rooms, just the restrooms.
Okay.
Hopefully with extension, maybe we can probably do locker rooms, but as of now, we have not done that, so.
Yes,
How does
Brian?
this compare just to a full-size football pitch? Is this like
So
half the
a full-size
size? or-
soccer field is like, the sizes is pretty big. So
Yeah,
this
is it like half the size of a normal
I would
one?
say like half the size of that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just curious if there
And the-
was room for, facilities to change, or if there were going to be
And the
concessions.
difference from this and the other soccer field that we have here in Legacy is we're going to do a foot size, so it's going to be soccer with walls, so it's going to be different. We don't have that
Okay.
here in town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
That's 24 hours per day.
Mike,
Indoor soccer.
you try it again.
Today. There you go. Sounds great. Do you expect to have indoor soccer 24 hours a day? Not that it'd be a problem, I'm just curious.
Not necessarily 24 hours. We were thinking of, to be able to, provide a little bit more income if necessary. We were able to probably rent this out to maybe softball or other sports that I know that they rent other places in the middle of the night. And they practice all throughout the night. So that's kind of why we considered maybe doing 24 hours in case of.
In case they
No.
want to catch a movie and then play some soccer or softball.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. I might be interested.
Any other questions? If not, we've got a ballot.
I have 6 ballots, and all 6 are in favor of granting the special exception.
Special exception is granted. Administrative matters.
We have none.
Unless any member has an objection, the chair will order the findings of each member casting a vote for the majority. Yeah, I hit it, and then it, oh, that was your fault? Okay. Hearing none, it is so ordered. And I would like to just remind everybody that we do have the Purdue class from Dr. Steinhardt, and if you would like to stay around and talk to the students, it'd be appreciated. I'll take the last motion.
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned.
Excellent.